On November 19, 2024, Jaguar launched a 30-second advertisement. It cost billions of dollars. Within weeks, sales collapsed 97.5%. The CEO resigned, the stock crashed, customers felt betrayed, and here's the shocking part. The ad featured no cars, no engines, no leather interiors, none of the elements that defined a 102-year-old luxury brand. Elon Musk asked, "Do you sell cars?" Donald Trump called it stupid and woke. Social media erupted with comments like, "I guess Jaguar identifies as bankrupt." This isn't an ad, it's Jaguar's funeral. But to understand why this ad was such a catastrophic mistake, you need to know what Jaguar was before this moment. For decades, Jaguar wasn't just a car company, it was a symbol. The sleek, predatory grace of the E-Type was hailed as the most beautiful car ever made, a design so perfect that the Museum of Modern Art put one on display. Celebrities drove them. Royalty owned them. Jaguar wasn't aspirational, it was legendary. The sophisticated growl of the engine in a Jaguar XJ, the car favored by world leaders and Hollywood elites, was a masterpiece of British engineering. When a Jaguar owner pulled into a parking lot, people noticed. Not because the car was loud or flashy, but because it whispered power. Jaguar stood for a very specific idea of luxury, British craftsmanship, understated performance, and a heritage of elegance and power. Their customers were loyal, affluent, and buying into an identity of brand. The leaping Jaguar logo was instantly recognizable, promising something visceral and exciting. That exclusivity was the foundation of the entire brand, the reason people paid a premium. Every ad, every car, every dealership told the same story. It was a powerful, profitable identity, and it was about to be completely abandoned in a single, baffling campaign. The company decided its past was a liability instead of its greatest asset, and they set out to delete it. They traded a roar for a whisper, and in doing so, they left their core audience behind, confused and alienated. They forgot the first rule of branding: you have to know who you are before you can tell anyone else, and the world was about to remind them, but they had no idea what was coming, or how far the backlash would spread. The reaction to the Copy Nothing campaign was immediate and brutal. It wasn't just that people disliked the ad, they genuinely didn't understand what Jaguar was trying to say. On social media, the confusion turned into ridicule. The campaign was meant to signal a bold, artistic future, but to the public, it signaled that Jaguar had lost the plot entirely. The most damning criticism came from figures with massive platforms. Elon Musk, never one to shy away from a public debate, posted a simple, devastating question on his platform: "Do you sell cars?" That single tweet went viral, perfectly capturing the core of the problem. The ad was so abstract, so removed from the product that the CEO of a rival car company could publicly question whether Jaguar was even in the automobile business anymore. It was a level of strategic failure that's hard to overstate. The criticism wasn't limited to tech billionaires. Across the Atlantic, US President Donald Trump launched a direct attack, calling Jaguar's new advertisement stupid and seriously woke. He declared it a total disaster and asked, "Who wants to buy a Jaguar after looking at that disgraceful ad?" This wasn't just a consumer complaint, it was a political and cultural indictment that framed Jaguar's rebrand as part of a larger, polarizing woke movement. The backlash was now a full-blown controversy, playing out on the world stage. But the most prophetic criticism came from the UK. Commentator Nigel Farage watched the unfolding disaster and made a stark prediction. Mark my words,
Jaguar will now go bust.
He called it another Bud Light moment, referencing the beer brand that had faced a catastrophic consumer boycott after a similar marketing misstep. For a brand like Jaguar, which relied on a reputation for sophistication and exclusivity, being compared to a mass-market beer brand in crisis was a new low. The core failure was a fundamental misunderstanding of brand equity. You don't pay a premium for a generic product, you pay for the story, the craftsmanship, the legacy. By creating ads with no cars, they failed to give people a reason to visit a dealership. The campaign was all sizzle and no steak, and customers saw right through it. They weren't just offended by the new direction, they were baffled by it. But the real damage wasn't just reputational, it was financial, and it was about to become undeniable. While the marketing team was celebrating its artistic breakthrough, the sales department was facing a nightmare. The financial impact of the rebrand was so severe it's almost hard to comprehend. The numbers tell the story with brutal clarity. In April 2025, just a few months after the Copy Nothing campaign launched, Jaguar's sales in Europe completely collapsed. But to understand how catastrophic this was, you need to understand what normal looks like for Jaguar. Jaguar wasn't a struggling brand. It wasn't a niche player. It was a major luxury car manufacturer with decades of market presence. In a normal month, they sold thousands of cars across Europe. So what happened in April 2025? What was the actual number? The company managed to register only 49 vehicles across the entire continent. In April 2024, they had sold 1,961 cars. That's a drop of 97.5%. It wasn't a slump. It was a vertical cliff. The trend for the first 4 months of 2025 was just as grim. Year-to-date sales from January to April fell by 75.1%, with only 2,665 cars finding buyers. Dealerships were left with empty showrooms and nothing to sell. The problem was compounded by a disastrous product strategy that ran parallel to the marketing blunder. In their push to become an all-electric ultra-luxury brand by 2025, Jaguar had decided to discontinue nearly its entire lineup of internal combustion engine cars. Models like the XE, XF, F-Type, and E-Pace were all phased out. But the new generation of electric vehicles, starting with the high-end Type 00 Grand Tourer, wasn't ready. It wasn't scheduled to arrive until late 2025 at the earliest. This created a perfect storm. The controversial ads alienated the existing customer base, and then, when those potentially curious or loyal customers might have gone to a dealership to see what was new, there were literally no cars for them to buy. Jaguar had created a massive product gap at the worst possible time. Meanwhile, their German competitors took a completely different approach. BMW and Audi continued to offer a full range of vehicles, including a growing number of electric models, and their sales grew accordingly. BMW saw a 32.4% increase in EV sales in the first quarter of 2025. They evolved without abandoning their core identity or their core customers. Jaguar, in its rush to be seen as a revolutionary, ended up with no customers left to revolutionize for. The financial pain reached Tata Motors, Jaguar's parent company. The stock market sent a clear message: this rebrand was a disaster. Tata's stock fell 1% right after the April numbers came out, then it dropped 8% over the next 8 days. By the end of the year, it was down 10%. Meanwhile, India's main stock index was up 6%. Everyone else was making money. Tata was losing it. Investors were voting with their money, and their verdict was clear. Jaguar's new direction was a disaster. The billion-dollar ad mistake wasn't just a figure of speech, it was translating into real, massive financial damage. The brand that had once been a symbol of British automotive excellence was now a case study in how not to manage a luxury brand. But the real reckoning was just beginning. By August 2025, the damage was irreversible. Jaguar's CEO, Adrian Mardell, announced his retirement after 35 years at the company. The leadership change was a public admission of failure. Tata Motors was forced to lower profit expectations across the entire organization. But here's the thing. This disaster wasn't written in stone. It was a choice. Jaguar's collapse is instructive precisely because it didn't have to happen. The company didn't fail because it tried to evolve. It failed because it tried to evolve by erasing everything that made it valuable. Heritage and innovation aren't enemies. Porsche proved this by launching the Taycan while keeping the iconic Porsche design language. BMW proved this by introducing the i7 and i5 while maintaining their grille, interior quality, and engineering reputation. They evolved without erasing. Jaguar could have done the same. Jaguar forgot the lesson it had learned over 102 years. Luxury isn't about chasing trends. It's about knowing who you are and staying true to it. The brand was legendary for a century. Then, in a single campaign, they abandoned everything that made them legendary, and the world moved on. Jaguar's story is a warning. When you forget who you are, the market will remind you, and it won't be gentle. If you want to see more stories of how the mighty fall, subscribe for more untold stories from the dark side of the business world.